Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's my pleasure and great honour to be moderating this session on the globalisation of gas. I wanted to say that I'm particularly happy to be here doing this session because we have in Oxford a new book on LNG which we published this year in cooperation with our colleagues at CAPSARC in Riyadh. The editor, Anne-Sophie Courbeau, will speak a little later in the week, so I'm not going to speak very much about the book. But one of the things I wanted to say was a number of people have reminded you already today that when the conference last met in Perth in 1998, this was very much a niche business with both importing and exporting countries in single figures. We know that has now changed, but that is very much our motivation for writing this book at this time, in the sense that the LNG industry has moved out of a niche business and is becoming something very much more global. I wanted to pick up a couple of things that were said this morning, and in particular Peter Coleman's observation about learning from the past. One of the things that I've had to do in my writing of the book is to write the historical chapter. And something that maybe you would like to think about is that when you try to look at the public domain information about the history of the LNG business, it's actually very, very small. The bibliography for my chapter fits quite comfortably on a couple of pages. Of course, we have excellent work from the International Energy Agency, the statistical agencies, and, if you can access them, conference papers from meetings like this. But let me give you an example that really is appropriate for the location we're in. I tried to find a really good history of the North West Shelf LNG project. Extremely important project, not just in Australia, but worldwide. It's actually very, very difficult to find really good information, aside from the statistics, on the development of this project, its successes, its problems. And I think you'll find that's the case with a lot of the big LNG projects in the world. The memories of this, the history of this, resides very much in the minds of the people who did the projects. Next thing I'd like to say, and I hope we'll maybe touch on this in the discussion, is that LNG is definitely globalizing, but whether it can be called a global product is, for me, still uncertain. But what I will say is that even though we may not be able to speak about a global gas price, I think the era of 2011 to 2014, where we saw the most enormous differences in regional prices between North America, Europe, and Asia, I doubt that time will come again. In other words, I don't think we will have one price across the world, but I think we will have prices that are much closer together than they were in that period in the early 2010s. So with those observations, let me introduce to you our absolutely stellar panel. I'm sure many of these gentlemen are well known to you, so I'm not going to go into their bios. I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they're going to speak. So we're first very privileged to have with us Hamad Mubarak Al-Muhannadi, the CEO of Rasgas. Next to him, Richard Gerard, the Vice President of LNG for ExxonMobil Gas and Power Marketing. Next to him, Ryan Lance, who's the Chairman and CEO of ConocoPhillips, and on my extreme left, Toshiaki Kitamura, President and CEO of INPEX. The format is the same as this morning. 8-minute introductions by each of the panelists and then a Q&A, and we've selected a few themes to try and discuss. I'm sure the panelists will keep to time, but I will have to make a discreet noise in case they overrun. So, our first panelist, Hamad, please.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be here this afternoon in beautiful Perth to share with you my views on current state of our LNG business and the globalization of gas. In many ways, it is very appropriate that we are in Australia a key contributor to the changing dynamics in our LNG industry, home to world-scale LNG projects and some significant change drivers for change, including floating LNG and coal-bed methane. For decades, markets were defined by regional gas supplies meeting regional demand, whether by pipeline in Europe and Americas or by LNG in Asia. The globalization of gas became a reality with the development of LNG from Qatar, the delivery of LNG from Middle East to markets in both the East and the West. Initially, LNG from Qatar was considered disadvantaged relative to competing Asian supplies due to its greater distance from the main LNG markets of Japan and Korea. However, Qatar's 900 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves proved to be very attractive, especially for customers needing access to reliable, long-term supply of LNG to meet their growing energy requirements. Supplies from Qatar commenced in 1996 with the initial delivery of LNG from Qatar Gas to Japan. RasGas began deliveries to its foundation customer, KOGAS, in 1999. Today, Qatar's 77 million tons per year of LNG is delivered to markets located in 4 continents, utilizing one of the largest fleet of dedicated LNG ships in the world. Despite the global reach of LNG, regional pricing differentials remained in the market until just recently. Prices for LNG delivered into Asia were traditionally linked to crude, while LNG prices for Europe and North America were linked to gas hub indices. The difference in indexation resulted in varying price levels between the regions and the divergence of LNG from the Atlantic to Pacific market. Recently, however, with the significant change in the LNG landscape, regional price differentials have virtually disappeared. The combination of lower oil prices and increased LNG production in the Pacific region, along with a decline in demand in some of the traditional Asian markets, have eroded the Asian premium and resulted in less cargoes being diverted from Western market to the East. Supply from North America has also impacted the LNG business by providing access to a new and significant source of natural gas, and by introducing Henry Hub indexation to Asian markets. The LNG business continues to evolve. Significant growth and changes have occurred over the past 10 years. The LNG market promises further changes and greater globalization in years to come. Today, the market reflects a rapid increase in production capacity and liquidity developed over the past decade. Worldwide LNG production has increased to over 230 million tons per annum, and we expect it to further increase to approximately 370 million tons per annum by the year 2020. Approximately 30 countries are currently importing LNG, twice the number of countries importing 10 years ago, and we anticipate the pace of growth to continue. Approximately 27% of LNG is currently sold under short-term and spot arrangements, a threefold increase since 2006. We expect this percentage to increase as new supply is brought online and as long as customers are comfortable with a greater portion of their demand to be supplied from the spot market. More recently, Qatar once again demonstrated its ability to meet customer expectation and to adapt to changing market dynamics by concluding 2 new long-term sales. One, Ras Gas to Petronet. The second, Qatar Gas, also entered a new long-term agreement with Pakistan State Oil Company. And we continue to remain confident in our ability to meet customers' expectations and to aggressively market in both our traditional and new LNG markets. Now I'd like to take a moment to discuss the current LNG supply and demand outlook and some potential implications for our business. The graph you see illustrates the global supply of LNG. It includes existing facilities and facilities under construction, which will reach approximately 370 million tons per annum by the year 2020. We can then overlay projects that have yet to be FID'd, indicating a total potential supply of over 600 million tons by the year 2028. But this is only one side of the equation. We must then overlay LNG demand and shown here there is a range of demand which will be a function of economic and market development factors. In the near term, we see an oversupply situation driven by all of the new LNG projects coming to stream. This current oversupply situation provides customers with the comfort to defer long-term commitments and the ability to secure lower prices and greater contract flexibility. Okay. As previously mentioned, however, this oversupply situation can rapidly turn into a potential undersupply situation if no new projects are sanctioned. The development of new projects will require customers and suppliers coming together to agree terms and commitments with prices that supports investment in new LNG projects. Going forward, we anticipate that demand growth and new LNG sales will be dominated by emerging markets enabled by rapid deployment of FSRUs. We have already seen this in Egypt, Jordan, and Pakistan. As the global market for LNG continues to evolve, we must all remember that it is still a business that requires significant capital investment. In order for companies to succeed in the new global market, they will require a long-term vision and resilience to overcome short-term uncertainties. Ras Gas has a proven record of reliability and resilience to overcome such uncertainty, and the strength and experience to meet customers' needs in the ever-changing LNG market, today, tomorrow, and for decades to come. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, and it's always a pleasure for me to come to Australia and visit the beautiful city of Perth. Some of you may remember back in 1998, we gathered here in Perth for LNG 12. It was a challenging time for the LNG industry as the Asian financial crisis in 1997 had led to a reduction in energy demand and prices had fallen considerably. At that time, I was living in Singapore, working together with our partners at Ras Gas and Qatar Gas to expand LNG markets in Korea, Japan, and other customers in the region, and to create new LNG markets. So it's particularly gratifying to be able to share the stage today with Hamid Mubarak Ahmadi. CEO of Rosgas, and reflect on our many years of partnership. As an industry, today we find ourselves facing new challenges. After continued steady demand growth, supply has now outpaced that growth, and we have an oversupply of LNG, and prices are low. We'll likely be dealing with the oversupply situation for some years to come. New projects may not need to come online until 2023 or even beyond. So until the market rebalances, we will not see projects that are unable to move forward because developers cannot obtain the necessary capital or reduce the cost enough to make their projects viable in the current environment. But I believe there's good news also for the industry. As investors, we're always looking for growth markets with strong fundamentals. We believe that the long-term demand for LNG remains strong, and there are significant opportunities for new markets. The world's demand for raw materials and energy supply is expected to increase significantly in the decades to come. As populations grow, economies advance, and the global middle class expands. And that will drive demand for power generation, which is already the fastest growing component of energy use. For many people around the world, LNG used for power generation will quite literally keep the lights on, to borrow from ExxonMobil's theme here at LNG 18. Now, as we all know, when we consider the economic and environmental benefits of available energy sources, natural gas checks all the boxes. And it also produces less carbon dioxide and other emissions than coal. But an interesting factoid, the growth of natural gas production from shale has enabled the United States to reduce its carbon dioxide emissions to levels not seen since the 1990s, even though the economy has grown 60% and added 50 million more energy consumers. ExxonMobil's outlook for energy estimates that nearly half the growth in global gas demand through 2040 is expected to be met through interregional trade and mostly from LNG. Here in Asia Pacific, by 2040, almost half the region's gas demand is likely to be filled by LNG, up from 35% today. Now we're seeing an expansion of new markets and buyers around the globe. Just a few examples. South Africa and Morocco are planning for LNG imports tied to power. In Latin America, Colombia and Panama are entering the LNG marketplace. In Southeast Asia, Indonesia, which has historically been an LNG exporter, is becoming a significant LNG importer. And in Southeast Asia, Bangladesh, new areas of India are poised to become LNG importers. And as you may know, our joint venture with Qatar Petroleum, Qatar Gas 2, has recently begun deliveries to Pakistan under a new SPA. Now, available technologies like FSRUs that require less capital and time to deploy are driving power developers with flexible solutions to initiate access to LNG supplies. ExxonMobil is currently working with a number of these developers, and as most of you know, we recently signed an agreement with Golar Gen Power to serve the Brazilian market. And we're seeing new types of customers. The International Marine Organization emission standards are creating new markets for marine bunkering. ExxonMobil is leveraging its industry-leading global marine position to meet our customers' LNG bunkering needs. Moreover, the opportunities for cost savings and emission mitigations in the land transportation sectors are driving increased demand, particularly in China. So you can see why I'm optimistic about the prospects for LNG. But however, right now we have two particular challenges. We got cyclical challenges and we got structural challenges. LNG is a business that runs in cycles, as many of you know, and the cycles are complicated by supplies that come on in line in chunks rather than continuously. And these supplies require time for the market to absorb before we see higher prices rewarding increased investment. But a typical LNG project requires significant lead time, and sometimes as much as 6 to 7 years, to put in place all the commercial arrangements and construct the necessary facilities. Now, therefore, under most reasonable demand estimates, the industry will likely need more than 10 projects to receive FID during this challenging price environment. Producers need to be positioned to launch a project and make the necessary investment so we can deliver the gas when the buyers need it. Without these investments, we risk of setting the stage for another boom-bust cycle. Now, another challenge is the unsustainable project cost. In recent years, LNG project costs escalated to the extent that it was difficult for the buyers to accept the price point and for the developers to fund an attractive investment. This means that one of the critical keys to our success for our industry is cost management. The good news, however, is the current market pause should eventually lead to a reduction in project costs as fewer projects move forward, industry developers continue to find efficiencies, and innovate lower-cost designs throughout the LNG value chain. We're also experiencing structural challenges in the LNG industry, as we've seen very significant diversity in customer needs. Some established buyers, such as Japan and Korea, are evolving from needing traditional long-term point-to-point contracts to optimizing their LNG portfolios with a variety of contract tenors and pricing formulas. We're also seeing buyers requesting time slots and more flexibility in volume takes. And suppliers are struggling of how to put these investments and agreements together and have a financeable project. At the same time, we have buyers in the markets with little LNG experience where new power generation projects are being planned with LNG as the primary fuel source. And there is a high threshold required to achieve a sustainable financeable chain. So our challenge is putting together all the components required and at the same time and build the buyer's expertise. This is where our strategic partnership, like the one we signed with KOGAS, are designed to help meet this challenge. An increased demand from the transportation sector is creating another challenge. Our industry has traditionally done large-scale deals, but smaller volume customers are challenging the industry to provide a cost-effective LNG supply solution. So what does all of this mean? Taken together, these cyclical and structural challenges mean developing new LNG capacity is no easier than it has ever been. For someone who's been in the industry for most of his 35-year career, I've learned there are two fundamental truths. First, on the supply side, being the lowest unit cost is the only way to survive the inevitable ups and downs of market cycles. And second, a strong buyer-seller relationship is a fundamental component to any LNG project, and the relationship should be deeper than just simply a contractual relationship. Now, I began my speech reflecting on the last time we met here in Perth for LNG 12. Like today, it was a challenging time for our industry, but it was precisely at that time we were able to work with our great partners at Qatar Petroleum and demonstrate industry leadership by making the largest LNG sale to that date, being the first to supply LNG to the India market, and building the world's largest LNG trains at Rosgas. That experience taught us that investment decisions must be made with a long-term view, a strong buyer-seller relationship, and that the LNG projects must be extremely cost competitive. In summary, success in this environment requires perspective, but tremendous discipline. But we believe the worldwide demand for LNG will continue to grow despite the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Ryan?
Thank you, Jonathan, and good afternoon as well. Let me extend my appreciation for being here at LNG in Perth as well. Hopefully we can provide some different perspectives on this morning's session as well. And in our topic, the globalization of gas is really one of the great industrial achievements of our time. Think about what the industry has done. We've democratized natural gas. We made it a vital energy source and brought it to the markets worldwide thanks to LNG. So dozens of nations, once considered energy poor, now instead can access nature's finest fossil fuel, its flexibility and abundance, and its environmental and climate benefits, and we can all take pride in that. It was a big job, took massive investments, ongoing technical achievements in innovation, perseverance, high degree of financial risk-taking, and courage on the part of people and companies that are here today. That includes my predecessors at ConocoPhillips. We developed the world's first LNG tanker in '59. We participated in the first commercial export in '64, shipping LNG from Algeria to the UK. We opened the Asia-Pacific market in '69, included building and operating the LNG plant in Alaska and then exporting LNG to Japan. Then we also developed the optimized cascade technology, our proprietary liquefaction technology that is now approaching 25% of the world's market share. So it's gratifying to see once a one-time niche business assume global stature. Like many of you, ConocoPhillips has broadened our market presence. We're also in Qatar and QG3, in Darwin in Northwest Australia, and APLNG on the East Coast. And at Darwin, we plan to leverage some existing capacity that's coming available in APLNG. Our first cargo sailed from Train 1 in January of this year. Now, looking ahead, we expect the industry to continue building on its legacy achievements. The time has come for natural gas. Global reserves are at an all-time high and growing. Gas supplies over 1/5 of the world's energy, but only 10% of that gas is LNG. Both portions, though, will climb. The global LNG market grew 75% in the past decade to 246 million tons per annum last year. It should grow another 50% over the next 5 years. More countries want LNG. 30 now nations have import facilities. By 2020, that could reach 49. Meanwhile, supplies are growing. 19 projects will start up between now and 2020, several of them on the continental part of the U.S. There, we've shipped our first export from Sabine Pass. So long term, both suppliers and customers should feel confident about the market outlook. But there's less certainty in the near future. There's an old saying, anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing. And our industry works that way. We tend to go from overdevelopment and resulting oversupply, then to the opposite extreme. And now we're in that near-term LNG surplus. And the road to rebalancing of the market may be a little bit bumpy. We're already seeing new contracts reflect those realities. Suppliers want flexibility in destinations. Buyers want shorter contract terms and pricing latitudes. They're confident of rising supply. These trends may continue at least until current supply projects are completed. But eventually the market will rebalance. Long-term commitments will return, and they'll be needed for new supply projects. It's a big job bringing LNG infrastructure online, such as producing fields, liquefaction plants, regasification plants. They all take big capital investments and long development windows. We'll need buyers and producers working together to underwrite new supply, and both will need a history of honoring their commitments. That will be essential to meeting future demand. Now, a note of optimism. Yes, we're in this commodity price downturn, but energy remains essential. It's the engine of global economic growth. Also, natural gas offers that viable path to a lower carbon future. It's the lowest cost, it's the fastest, it's the most efficient option available, and it may be of critical importance really in the years ahead. From that standpoint and its abundance, gas is truly nature's gift. Meanwhile, a period of oversupply like this one strengthens the need for innovations. Some must come on the technical and the operational areas like continuous improvement in gas turbines, compressors, heat exchangers, greater efficiency in drilling, facility installation completions. Innovations in the marketing area. LNG has gone global. Our business relationships must reflect this. Suppliers must broaden their horizons. They need to consider new buyers, even in unfamiliar markets. The markets will readjust. They'll match up new supplies with buyers, so our logistics and our trade flows will evolve. We'll use market intelligence and business development relationships across continents. Those will inform our global perspective and influence the future supply growth strategies. We suppliers also need to innovate. We need to drive costs down, maintain competitiveness, and become more flexible and efficient. We should find better opportunities to leverage existing infrastructure. Some projects are in close proximity and need to collaborate together. Industry and government must work together. We need stable fiscal terms, and we need mature and efficient regulatory regimes. These are clearly uncertain and volatile times. We consider the current expectation of a near-term oversupply. That could stimulate additional demand. On the other hand, it could force delays or even cancellations of some projects. Either scenario will have far-reaching effects on the global supply and demand balance. The bottom line, We all have work to do, both suppliers and buyers. Our playbook has been used for decades, and we're going to have to add a few new pages. We need to work differently. So in closing, we should not interpret today's oversupply as just a signal to slow down. It's an opportunity to innovate, expand our business networks, build relationships, and really prepare for a long-term market equilibrium. Despite the uncertainties ahead, there's one fact we know for sure. LNG is no longer a niche business, and it's fundamental to the global energy market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kirimura-san.
Saved you some time there.
Thank you for the introduction, Professor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful for being given this opportunity to speak here at Elgin 18. In addressing today's theme, the globalization of gas, I'd like to talk about two things based on the current state of play of the LNG business and its future outlook. The first is the diversification of the needs of energy buyers and the response of energy suppliers. The second, realization of future demand and new business opportunities. Long-term contracts have shaped the energy business since its inception in 1970s. But with the emergence of shale gas-based U.S. LNG and other sources of supply, a major structural shift is taking place within industry. Energy buyers once prioritized long-term stable energy supplies. With the easing of the market brought on by the increase in supply sources, buyers are more and more inclined to pursue flexibility in the terms of agreement, including contract periods, procurement volumes, and destinations. Also, due to uncertainties in demand and other factors, buyers are looking to take advantage of the flexibility in their contracts to buy and sell LNG among themselves. We may see stronger alliances and mutual transactions between buyers. To respond to this shift in buyers' preference, priorities change, suppliers must first improve the competitiveness of their project through efficient project development and operations. This will require experience in the execution of project as an operator, as well as the proactive use of latest technologies. At the same time, suppliers will not be able to avoid incorporating a certain amount of flexibility into sales and purchase contract to accommodate the diversifying needs of buyers, in which case the development of a liquid market in which surplus LNG can be easily sold would be meaningful even for suppliers. On the other hand, the easing of the market and the drop in LNG prices have rendered the economics of long-term energy project uncertain. Thus, new LNG projects have not been able to commit FIDs. But to secure stable long-term energy supplies for the future, large-scale energy projects will need to be developed. We all know such energy sub-project requires long lead times and huge upfront investment, and there will always be a need for a certain amount of guaranteed offtake. There are also plenty of benefits for buyers to secure stable, long-term energy supplies from conventional large-scale energy projects to the extent of meeting their base load requirements. I'm confident large-scale energy projects like our own Exit project that are located near primary energy consumer markets and that can consistently supply energy over the long term will continue to be strong supply sources. I'm sure we all agree natural gas is among the most important resources for the long-term global supply and demand of energy. Demand for natural gas is expected to grow to power the global economy, improve living standards around the world, and mount to a further response to environmental issues triggered by the COP21 Paris Climate Conference. Experts suggest energy demand in the region known as emerging Asia, including China, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia, is expected to quadruple between 2015 and 2035. Forecasts indicate by 2035 the demand in this region will amount to 35% of global demand, and it is believed demand will be realized, driven by the economic growth. However, to ensure this demand materializes, there will be a need for institutional provision, such as gas infrastructure within this emerging market and rational gas prices. There will also need to be improvement in the business environment. In the future, it is expected new buyers in this market will emerge as players in the energy market. For energy suppliers pursuing the new business opportunities created by these new potential buyers entering the energy market will be an important step to ensure continued growth. In addition to improving competitiveness as an extension of past initiatives by responding, as I said before, to the diversifying needs of buyers and ensuring competitiveness in the liquid market, suppliers may in the future need to become more proactively involved in bringing potential energy buyers out into the market and generating demand. Already, some energy buyers are seeking business development opportunities in the energy, electricity, and gas infrastructure of emerging market. Perhaps suppliers will need to do more than focus on conventional gas sales and purchase agreement. They may need to also play a role in developing infrastructure and supplying electricity and gas local consumers. In terms of future expansion of LNG use, I believe it is likely that a new business framework will emerge involving suppliers, buyers, and all stakeholders in the gas business of emerging market. I'd like to refer to this new business framework as the multi-party energy model. Implementing this multi-party energy model will be one way to achieve an all-win scenario. in the energy industry of the future. Inpex Corporation is about to take its first leap as a global energy operator right here in Australia. But with the imminent structural changes in the LNG business, we will need to carefully and positively consider the kind of roles we could assume in the market and shape our growth strategy accordingly. Thank you.
Hidemura-san, thank you very much. And I'd like to start, I want to make sure you haven't confused the audience, guys, because you all ended up very upbeat, but then you all seem to say that the next few years were going to be really very tough. So have I got you right in the sense that you're seeing this current situation of low prices and excess demand essentially hindering the expansion of the industry and the development of globalization? And so we may be seeing really a pretty tough time for LNG in the next several years. Ryan, why don't I start with you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind that's buried in that question. And one, I guess this was supposed to be a bit provocative in these sessions, so at the risk of doing that, I'll try just a little bit. And that is one of the interesting developments in the global gas space has been the unconventional innovation that's starting in North America that will progress globally. And the interesting thing about that, when you think about our industry over the past 100 years, there's been two great big supply jumps in that 100 years, all the way from the first well drilled in Pennsylvania and then the onshore development, followed by the offshore development in the 1960s and the 1970s. The innovation and the technology that the industry has developed, adding these, going into the source rock and being able to develop that and do that at a low cost of supply, I think has the potential to turn the industry on its head a little bit. And I say that because the opportunity with that can possibly dwarf what we as an industry developed when we went onshore and we went offshore. And people don't really appreciate that. And it can be done at a very low cost of supply, and a competitive cost of supply, and it can be done in a flexible, more resilient sort of investment fashion that I think is the problem that long-term LNG projects will have to compete against going forward. So then it becomes a demand question. It becomes, where's the demand going in the world? And I do believe the demand is going to be there, not only for those kinds of unconventionals, North American type of projects that go global, but also for the long-term LNG as well. So I do think demand is going to grow. We're going to need the gas, and we're going to need all supply sources of gas. I think over the medium and the near term, the challenge is going to be this unconventional revolution that's occurring in North America. Today we have a century of supply in North America at a low cost of supply.
Richard, you didn't sound as bullish as that. Is my reading your presentation right?
Is this mic on?
Yeah. The question is really, Ryan sounds like he's seeing this unconventional revolution as being something like the engine of low-cost supply. But, when I heard your presentation, I more got the sense that you sensed there was going to be a pause in LNG before we kind of got back on the road. Is that the right way to look at it?
Well, the pause, when I said pause, what I'm talking about is there is a period between, it's already started here, and probably to 2023-ish, maybe longer, that we're going to be in an oversupply situation, and no new projects are going to be technically required. And so that creates a period here that it's going to be low-cost wins. I don't disagree with what he's saying, that there are, the innovation that's going on in North America and other areas as far as shale gas development driving costs out of the system. But I would suggest that there are other projects around the world that are very low cost. And I look at my friend here to my right, very low cost projects that can compete in any market in the world. And there are new projects out there that are going to be potentially coming on stream that could be FID during this period of time that are very low cost. So, It goes back to those, one of those two fundamental truths, low unit cost, and obviously, customer alignment and the relationship are going to be what it's going to get us through this period.
Hamad, you're a low unit cost guy. How do you see this?
Well, the way we see this is the current environment is an opportunity for us, and it is an opportunity for the demand to grow. I mean, low-cost LNG will encourage new customers to come and really develop more of the infrastructure that can afford the low LNG prices, low gas prices. So we're focusing on really going into new markets, some of the new market that has evolved over the last 10 years, like India. We're very focused on that market. We're also exploring new markets such as Bangladesh, and Qatar, as a general, has just signed a deal with Pakistan. So these are traditionally new markets that, if it wasn't for the current environment of low prices, they wouldn't really have evolved. So this is definitely going to create more demand, and I guess by the early 2020s, we're going to see some more pressure on really trying to increase supplies to meet the new demand. So yes, the next 5 years, 6 years, it's going to be tough, but we're going to have to be, as an industry, we're going to have to be resilient and to demonstrate our strength to sustain the current environment. But our perspective on the long term remains very optimistic.
Keith Morisango, how do you feel about these issues?
When it comes to the Asian energy market, long-term demand expansion is no question at all. But for near term, we have a couple of uncertainties. In the case of China, the economy is slowing down, so that affects quite uncertain prediction for energy demand in China. And in traditional Japan, Korea, or Taiwan market, in particular Japan, we have uncertainty for the restart of nuclear power station, as well as the impact of newly introduced market liberalization for electricity and gas as well. So that for the time being, uncertain demand have a negative impact for new launching of energy project.
Okay, what I'd like you to do now is, you've already mentioned the challenges that you think the industry is facing, and I think the audience would like to hear a little bit more detail from you on how you see issues like changes in contract length, price formation, new types of customer demand. Hamad, why don't we start with you on that?
Okay, I think it's true we are in this situation now. We see that the customers' expectations are changing, definitely, and their expectation is no longer longer term. They won't take that risk. They really want to have a shorter term or spot cargoes if they can survive with this. They are very reluctant to sign long-term deals, and we can truly understand this, and we have to be very flexible to survive or not, to really be adaptive to these markets. It's for us, creating new customers and new markets is essential. So I think current environment over the next several years is really an opportunity for us to expand the LNG market. And we have to be very flexible, meeting the expectations of our customers, both long-term customers and short-term customers, in terms of meeting their, being flexible in terms of adapting to some of their needs, and really surviving through this wave, this current circumstances, and I think the market and the industry as a whole has all the ingredients to really survive through this.
Kitamura-san, you're both a buyer and a seller. So how does this work for you when you look at the new commercial situation?
I would say the trend shift, what is happening at this moment is a change of buyers' priorities towards more flexibility and more diversification. So that in terms of contract duration and volume, obligation and destination, and in particular, price formation. Japan, a couple of buyers have been trying to introduce alternative price formula, alternative for JCC, as you're familiar with the Asian price formula standard. So that a couple of ideas come up. Henry Hub link price would have been very popular idea. But Henry Hub is based on market, supply and demand in United States. There has been no logical linkage for Asian or Japanese market. So that pros and cons for any ideas. So my observation is, for the time being, we have no perfect price formula to replace JCC. Or I would say there would be combination, good combination of a couple of price formulas. But in any event, buyers and sellers are requested to sit down in the table and to negotiate and to come up with the mutually acceptable contract terms, taking into account of characteristic of project or market.
Richard, you talked a lot about challenges. Anything you'd like to pick up on from that discussion?
Well, I'm going to build on what Hamid said and add some more context to the development of new markets, because I think if you listen to the theme of my talk, it was, now is a time with an oversupply and there's plenty of opportunity out there to develop these new markets. And sometimes, and again, what my friend here said, you got to listen to the customer. There is a lot of new things and needs that they are asking for. Some of them make sense for a project and are economically viable, and we need to address. Example is, and I mentioned our Brazil deal. Here is a market that is driven by hydro. There is a lot of swing required to meet the demand in Brazil. Historically, our industry has not, we like those flat baseload ratable contracts, right? But here's a market that wants LNG, that can burn LNG. And if for the right players with lots of optionality in their portfolios, that market can provide value both to the customer and to the supplier. And it's a good example of having to address some of the needs of the customer. Secondly, I brought up marine bunkering, and everybody thinks, well, that's just a little thing and all. I mean, I believe, we don't know what the potential of marine bunkering is yet, but the estimates are, I think, more substantial than what we've seen. But the issue is cost-effective solutions. Our industry doesn't quite line up with all the ports in the world, and to be able to provide LNG to a new ship in a cost-effective way is a challenge. Okay. So what we're looking at is really leveraging our existing bunkering network and and adding a new product that would allow us to satisfy that demand.
Okay.
These are all the kinds of things that we're going to have to do as industry, and this is a great time to be doing that.
Okay. Amazingly, the clock is beginning to catch up with us, and what I wanted to do was to give each of our speakers about a 45-second one-line or two-line wrap-up of the things that they thought had most they would like to leave the audience with. Ryan, you didn't get in on that last round, so we're going to start with you.
Well, my couple cents would be similar to along the lines of the last conversation. I think the demand side is really, really important, and that's where I think government has a role to play. If government and countries are serious about what came out of Paris at COP21, they've got a huge role to play in terms of incentivizing gas demand as one of the solutions to some of the climate problems. So in the short and the medium term, it is about working together, and I think Hamid's right. The low price is going to drive demand, and then as an industry, we've got to be ready to respond to that demand, which does mean going back to longer-term price contracts as well, because that's the only way additional projects are going to get built to satisfy that demand. But if countries are serious about what happened in Paris, then governments have a huge role to play around gas and getting it into their markets.
Keith Nielsen?
I think we have 2-3 C's to address this situation. Number one is competitiveness. We need to improve our competitiveness. Number two is collaboration. Collaboration with all stakeholders, buyers, or government, or others. And the third is creative thinking. We have lived in a very traditional world in LNG business, but now we may see the start of a new world of LNG, so that we need to have creative thinking.
Richard?
Well, 3 points. Number one is long-term demand for LNG is going to be robust. It doesn't feel real good right now, but the long-term future of our industry is going to be robust. And then I go back to the other 2 points and my fundamental truths in this industry. Low unit costs. We've got to drive the cost out of the business, both in the upstream and the downstream, to open up these new markets, to develop new supplies. And finally, is we got to listen to our customers. We got to address those needs. We got to work hard to do that, and it goes beyond just a contract. It's a relationship.
Finally, Hamid.
Okay, I think it's, I'm not going to differ from my colleagues here, but there are a couple points that I really wanted to leave the audience with. One is gas and LNG is a clean fuel, and it's a fuel for the future. And I think it is going to take more than just low gas prices. It's going to take some serious governmental policies to really focus on encouraging environmental friendly fuels, to really have a fair opportunity for gas. Second thing, I wanted to also have more stress on strengthening the relationship between the suppliers and customers, working hand in hand to really understand their needs better, and where it makes sense, really demonstrate flexibility to meet those demands and be very flexible. Third and last point is for us as an industry, continue focusing on being the lowest cost possible. I think this is an opportunity for us to really look at our costs and to focus on our unit costs, ensuring that we focus on the operations, ensuring that we have safe and reliable facilities that can deliver clean energy to the world.
Okay, well, folks, we're out of time. There's going to be a short break now, and then the parallel sessions begin. But before I let you go, I think you'll agree we've had a great session here. Can I ask you to thank our excellent panel?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks.